Good day, all. Today is going to be the start of a series of projects for lighting on my layout. And the first one will be dealing with the street light. And you can see that right here. And so what's neat about this one is you can pull this out, take it out, and then plug it back in. And I have quite a few of these on my layout. And it's nice when I need to clean or something, I can pull them out without breaking. So let's get started. A few years ago, I got the Kato Unitrem system. And these are the little lights that came with it. And I put LEDs into them. And I liked them, but they were not very good. You can see the LEDs in there. And the reason why I didn't like it is because you could see the wires around the outside of it. And it just, they didn't hold up. They break really easy. And I needed to think of a better way of doing it. So what you're going to see is what I have done and how I've gotten to a better one of these. So one of the first things I started doing was looking for brass tubing for the lights. I wanted to run the wires inside so you couldn't see them. And so I went online and it had these two values because I was looking really more like for the 6-inch diameter in scale. And so these two came close. And then I started looking at it. And then if I were to pick the larger diameter, I would need, I get 4 sections of light towers out of one single piece of tubing, because it was at 12 inches long. And the price wound up being 75 cents per light. And I needed 40 of them. That puts it at $30. Then I looked at the smaller diameter, and that was even worse. That wound up being $1.50 per light. So I kept on looking, and working in the engineering department, I was familiar with some of the drilling operations that had been done on airfoils and things like this. And it's a process called as EDM. And EDM is electrical discharge machining. And it makes really small diameters. So I started looking at that, I knew about that. So I said, well, let me go look at that. And I went online and did some searching, and I found some tubing that I wanted. And so here's the breakdown on prices and the sizes if we were to look at just the tubing itself. And when you look back at this, you're looking at this size tubing here. It comes out to 11 cents. That's 2.2 cents for every light post. That's a lot more affordable than anything else. And so you can see the prices on the diameters for this EDM tubing. And if you just do a search online for EDM drill rods, our drilling electrodes, you can go on a search and you're going to find a bunch of this stuff. And you're going to find that in most cases, in the smaller diameters, you can get 100 of them for fairly inexpensive prices. And as you go further down, the prices go up a little bit, but the quantities drop. Now, if you're going to do this search, make sure you get a single a hole through the thing, not the Y configuration or the double hole or the triple. Don't do these because you won't have much room to run your wires. So the one I picked, you can see here, I've got 6 wires running through the center of this. This is for another project of mine. It's basically the traffic light. But for street lights, I only need 1 wire to go through that to work. And so we're looking at in this general area here. My layout is consistent of LEDs only. There is no incandescent lights whatsoever. And when I say LED, I'm not trying to talk down to people, but it's light emitting diodes. We use way too many acronyms. And for people who are just starting out in certain things, it can be overwhelming. So for SMD, that means surface mounted devices. So those are things that get soldered to a printed circuit board directly, not the old style where you had little holes in the printed circuit board and you drop your items through. These are much smaller, and this is what we're using. And these are the sizes. They have an imperial size and a metric size. Going down further into the inches, it doesn't seem to correlate anymore because everything all of a sudden jumps over to metric. So how this happens, I'm not sure. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not sure what drives this. But you'll see these, and if you do a search on this online, you're going to find these. And sometimes you will see the corresponding in a parentheses like this, or they'll have the metric sizes next to them. But as we go further down, they're all metric. And so we're going to be using this particular LED for our project today. But I just wanted to show you what they look like. These are the smallest ones. They're the most difficult ones to solder. If you try to pick it up with the tweezers, get it, you're going to lose them. So when you try to take them out of these packages, even these are pretty small, you take them out of your package, you want to take the little clear piece, peel it back slowly, and drop it onto some tape. And now you can see I have the tape up here, and it's face up, and then I hold it down with some other tape. And when I pull this open and it drops, it'll fall right onto here and stick. If I try to do it over the surface here, it might bounce and I might not be able to find it. You can see that they're the corresponding here. And there's other times that I will be showing you in other features or other videos how I solder these. I use a jig for these. These I can just solder straight up. So all these I can just solder straight from this tape here, but there's a very difficult to solder this. And this is actually the smallest LED you can actually buy as in individuals. So when we look at the blown up view, there you'll see some dimensions and things. Here you're going to see on the back side of this little LED, and it's right in this star here, the back side, that's the positive, that little short piece, and this is the negative, this longer piece. And you can see what the visual side of it is. What we will be doing is we are going to be connecting our rod, our tube, we're going to be soldering it here, and then running a wire through to connect to that. All right. If you needed for some reason that you wanted the rod to be the positive side, then you would turn it this way and just reverse the process of what we're going to be working on. Another unique item that I used for my lights are these wire ferrules. And if you look at the dimensions that I've got here, I picked these off the internet. You can do the same, or you can I'll just leave these available to people. You're going to find that the inside diameter and the outside diameter, some of these will nest into each other very nicely. And with that gives me the ability to make these little sockets so that the lights can drop into them. And so that's what's all here. Other thing, a nice unique thing is, if you have a parking lot or something like that, and if you take one of these and turn them upside down like this, instead of using them as a receiver, put this where the asphalt would be, now you have this item that you can actually paint, or even use it, leave it black, whatever, but it's like a big concrete pillar around the pole that you have got coming up. And I've used that in my freight yard. So you can do that. Other things you can do is you can nest these in a way which is kind of neat. Is you take and you slide that one in there, and now you can see I have something can plug in and catch the electricity to this side, and then we can put another wire to that, and it's totally insulated. So this could be your positive and that could be your negative with the line coming in. And that's what I have done with my lights. Now these things are used mainly in Europe, these wire ferrules. And that's the intent is to deal with braided wire like this. And what happens is if you put them into an item like this where you screw them down, this stuff spreads out and you don't get a good contact. But here you can take and just slide them on, and then crimp them. And now you got them on. And now when you go to put it in here, you have something that is going to work much better, because it's a little harder for it to spread out and ruin the wires or break the wires. And so I tighten down on it, and then I'll just come back out. You can see it didn't really do much here, it just grabbed a hold of it nicely. And again, give it a little bit of a twist, drop it on, and do that. So if you've got wires on your layout you need to do, this is another good thing to do. So what you want to do is you want to look for wire ferrules on the internet, and then you can wind up with a bunch of different things. It's up to you which ones you want to buy, but I bought the bare ones because I need the bare ones for the outside, and then the insulated ones are for the inside process, like that. So you get a nice job like that. And then we could always do something like that, and that would be your concrete barrier, and you still get your light post down through the center that way. So that's what we do. Okay, the last thing you're going to need to figure out and get ordered, unless you have it already, is mag wire. And these you can find in wall warts or transformers, motors, and things like that. The windings in there. I ordered this stuff online. Some of it I actually got from the old Radio Shack, so that's been around for a while. But when I say order online, I have been doing everything and picking up pretty much everything for this project and several other projects on AliExpress. It works well. They're roughly running now about 2 weeks from the time I order to the time I get it. The only thing you got to be really careful about is pay attention to what the shipping cost is. If you order a bunch of them and get them into a little package, you could get them free shipping. Other places, the cost of shipping is more expensive than the product ever is. So you got to be careful with that and use your judgment on that stuff. Or you just try Amazon or something else for some of that stuff. I'm not sure how much stuff is going to come from Amazon or not. But that's what I do. And so this is what you need, is mag wire. I use a 32. This is a 34. Both of them will work for this particular project. There are other places where I actually need to go much smaller. But for this particular project, 32 will work. Now that we've got all the parts that we need, let's talk about cutting these things. This brass tubing, I use a hobby knife to cut it. And for my particular application, I want about a 26.5 feet high light post. That roughly is about an 8-meter high post. And that means I need to cut this at a 2.75 inches or 70 millimeters. And that's all written right there. And what I do is I just come in here. I line it right up on the edge, take the hobby knife, and just run it back and forth a few times. And then I snap it off. Now, the one key thing is, once you've done this, you might have plugged up the hole a little bit. So what you need to do is you need to take a little drill and very carefully, because these drills are very brittle, I just give it a real light turn just to put a chamfer on the ends so that I can open this up. And it takes a little bit of doing. And these drill bits, I get them from Harbor Freight. They come in a little package like that. They're in the small tool near the Dremel section, the little hand drilling tools. That's where I picked them up. I've seen them in AliExpress. I've seen them other places. So here you can see A is prior to drilling it out or putting a chamfer in it, and B is where the chamfer is on that. I will put a picture up also. The other thing you can do is use a file, and you can file the ends too. For consistency, I made a jig. This way I can hold the LED in place when I go to solder it. I can then make sure that everything else is basically the same shape, and where I'm soldering other, like the little rods to the side for the flags and things like that, or the bottom of the LED or the bottom of the light post, is it hitting right where it normally is. And I build this little jig. You can see the little cutout there for the LED. So what I do is I drop the thing in there, and then I can then take an LED and then just place it right into the slot there. And keep it consistent. So now you can see it's held there and the LED is facing downwards correctly. So depending on how high you want your light posts, how far out you want, you can adjust all this stuff to it. Now it comes time to bending these. And you can try it with different types of tools and things, but I found the most consistent way to get these to come out was to use an old director set with the wheel, and I configured it like this. And so what you can do is then bend it around. And so this is what I'm using. You can probably think of other things to do, but what I do is I place the rod right in there, and it sits right, the tip of it sits tangent to the little screw there. And so I hold that there, and then what I do is I drop in the other side here. Okay. Drop that in. Now I just make sure that I've got it where I want it to be, and then I start to bend it. And I turn it. Just dropped off. Once I've got it all lined up, then I can start to bend it. And I slowly just pull this side around, and I come almost to 90 degrees. You're going to have to play with this and see which one it works. And when I say or 180 comparable, but once I get to this point, it's going to spring back a little bit, and then I should get what I'm looking for, and it's my 90 degree. And so that looks pretty good. Once you get used to it, you should be able to make a bunch of these fairly quickly and consistently. It takes a little time to get used to where things are and how to keep this thing from slipping off the little guidepost as you saw in the beginning of this. Now it's time to solder the LED to the light posts. So one of the things you can do is you can put in the mag wire first and just run it down the tubing a bit. And this will help keep the solder out of the tube, because you get that in there, you won't be able to get the mag wire in later on. So I do that, set it up like that, and then I'll pull out one LED. Drop it on there, flip it over, and put the negative side towards the post. And I just place it there. Add very, very little LED flux to it, to the LED. Alright, I got the flux on there. Now, I use very little solder, and the soldering iron is touching the brass, not the LED. Load up my soldering iron. Just a little dab there, just a little, just can barely see it there. There's just a little knob on there. I'll take a photo for you later. And then I just touch the brass and hold it there for a minute. And that's it. I hit the brass, not the LED. And now I can take this out. I can slide this out, and you can see the LED is now attached. Once I've done that, I can then come through, and I can actually go back and run this thing through here and feed it all the way down, and it comes out the other end, hopefully. Oh, there it is. Bring it all the way out. Now I can start building the rest of this, and how that works, it's going to be like this. This is the mag wire that has just been fed through the bottom of the tubing. I'm going to tin the end of it, put a little section of phosphorus brass wire on it, solder that together, put a little shrink tubing or some little insulation around it. You can actually use some of the masking product for printed circuit boards also, and then UV cured. Once that's done, going to solder on the ferrule to the tube, the base of the tube, then pull the mag wire back up to when it bottoms out here. Then I will trim it and tin the end and attach it to the LED. And the end result then will be we'll make the the base will have the resistor put onto it, and then you can actually check everything. Or you should really check after you solder the positive wire to the LED. You want to make sure that that's working, and you're going to use an ohm meter, and we'll show you that in a minute. But once you get this all done. Now, before I go any further, I want to verify to make sure the LED is good and I've got everything correct at this point. And I tend to do this as I go down several times. Every time I touch the LED with the soldering iron, I want to verify that it is still good. So I've got my ohm meter. I've got it for the conductivity. So if I hit this, you can hear the buzzer going. Remember, don't use the 8 or 12 or whatever voltage. Just use the ohm meter because you're going to blow the resistors or blow the LED otherwise. So the ground goes to the bare wire or the brass, and there you can see I've got a light, so it's good. So this far everything is going well. So now that I've got that set up, I'm going to now quickly just scratch a little bit off the back end of that so I can tin that in a minute. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to grab a ferrule, run the ferrule up, and this actually is too big. I need the smaller one. Run that ferrule over here, put a little bit of flux on the brass tubing, pull this up. It sets directly on against the wood, right where I want it for my correct height. Again, a little bit of solder, and hold this in place and touch the brass. And that solder should run right in there. And that should be nice and snug. It's already done. So a little bit more solder. And more flux on the end of the wire there. And heat it up. Okay. That looks good. Just get rid of the carbon. One of the things I have problems with is when I'm doing real small LEDs, the carbon that's coming off of the enamel still stays there, and then it will actually work as a resistor, and then the LED won't come in. So be careful, make sure that that's clean and that's not causing you a problem. For this size, it shouldn't. Alright, there's my phosphorus wire, the brown phosphorus wire for my pickup. And I will then now just put it there. Again, a little bit of solder. And boom. That takes care of that. I will now cut off a little piece of this. And that gets me there. And I put in a little shrink wrap. Put that on. And slide that across. And right now, alright, I wanted to bring this a little closer so you can see it. So I've got the insulation on there, the little shrink tubing, and then I'm just going to slide that into the ferrule area. And it's going to take a little bit of work, and then just get snugged in there. And then what you can see, and I'm not sure if I can see it, but I'm not sure what you can see on the camera there, but right here, that's where the solder is, and there's an excess amount of insulation here, and I'm going to cut it back, and then cut it back so that it keeps it from short-circuiting, but yet I can still get it into the receiver correctly. Alright, so now that I've got that insulation in there and that everything's snugged up, I'm going to now cut this just a little long. Cut the mag wire and then bend it away from the LED and just scrape it just so ever so slightly. And I've got it bent up. I'm going to take a picture of that. Now that I've scraped a little bit of the enamel away, I'm going to put a little bit of flux on there. And we're going to tin the end of that wire. Again, I'm holding on the wire, just letting that wire get tinned up. Once I'm happy with that, I now will take it and rebend that wire down onto the LED. I'll put a little bend into it. Once I have that, again, a little dab of flux. I have the wire touching the pad on the LED. Again, a little bit of flux and solder now. And again, touch the wire, not the LED. And that's done. Verify if it's working. And this one, we will just take it and grab a hold of the base there, and I will grab a hold of the electrode here. And you can see it lit up. So everything is good. So the only thing I need to do now is trim just a wee bit of that wire off of that, and the light post is basically done. I've trimmed that off. Now, you can always add a little brass wire here onto the side. It's for your flags, or you can make it like a little T and you can put little signs hanging on it. That's if you like it. I like the idea of having little, you know, all the nationality flags just flying for some holiday or something or another. And that's it. But you can always put, you know, like a veterans, you know, memorial to the veterans, and you can do all that type of stuff, and it kind of looks interesting. It adds another nice little touch to it. The next thing after that would be to paint it. I'd spray paint it silver and then let it dry for about 2 or 3 days. I would spray paint the entire LED and everything. After it's been drying for a few days, I would then come back with a Q-tip and some acetone and just wipe the top or the face of the LED to get rid of the paint. And then the rest of it would be fine. And that would be your light post. It would be ready to go. Now we're going to go work on the base. Okay, now I'm going to make the base. And so I want to take the next size ferrule that will fit this. And that is, for me, I've used this one and then this one in here, this box. But you'll have to figure out what you need. And you can see it slides in and fits right in there nicely. So what I want to do here is I want to solder to here, and I want to solder this here. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going to solder the resistor, and I'm going to use a 1K resistor, and I'm just going to put that right here and just hold this. And so a little bit of flux. Get the solder. And there's that. So that's been soldered to now. So I can trim that off. And now I need to do this one here. Grab that. I'm going to grab a wire. I just thought I had a wire here. I'll just do it this way. And so, again, that. Little solder there. Trim it. And for this one, little hook. Come about there. And so now that these two are soldered, now I want to glue these in here. And this will sit right in like that. So I use JB Weld. You can use any kind of epoxy. Because it is metal, it's a little easier to use this than trying to use crazy glue or anything else, because that might not last very long. So little dab there. There. And put it on the outside of this. And then slide that in there. Needs a little bit more. And slide that there. And then just use a rod to hold it steady. I have something someplace here. I can actually use this even. And just slide that in there. And let it stay that way. So now, if I do this right, the light should come on. So this is 12 volts, so positive to this end, negative to this end. Now granted, if this was painted it wouldn't work, but now you can see it's lit. And I'm going to let that dry, and that's it for the lights. So it's all been checked and we're good. Please leave any comments, any suggestions. Please be kind to me, because this was my first real video, and it's not easy making these things. A lot of people make it look real easy, but it's not. So, until next time, take care.